I'm Brandy Yates, and I'm joined by Meridian Township Finance Director Miriam Madison and Meridian Township Treasurer Phil DeShane, and we're going to talk about the Meridian Township millage rates, especially with an upcoming election. Thank you so much for both being here today.
Thank you.
Well, first, I kind of wanted you to each talk about your role with the township and maybe the difference between your two departments and what they do on a daily basis. Phil, let's start with you.
The Treasurer's Office is responsible for the primary function is to collect all taxes and other fees that are owed to the township, account for those receipts, make sure they're deposited in safe and state-approved institutions. Also, the Treasurer is responsible for approving all payments. The final okay and the signature on the check for all payments is up to the Treasurer to manage.
And Miriam?
As the finance director, my responsibility is to make sure that all the funds that are collected for the taxes go into the proper funds, or we like to call them buckets sometimes, but that they're put in the appropriate spot and that the spending is appropriate for each of those funds that are being collected. And I also do that by the budget process that is put before the board and ultimately approved.
Okay. And can you briefly talk about how you work together to kind of make sure all the finances and everything's in order?
Well, we actually share staff, and in the Treasurer's Office, there are 5 of us employees there. 2 of them work directly for the finance director, and 2 work directly for me. At that office, we collect all taxes, process them. We also collect all utility payments. It works out very well because if someone who's responsible for utility is busy, one of us, the treasurer people, can come up and help with another utility payment. Likewise, during tax season, our utility people are very helpful in collecting taxes as well.
Okay, and what about the assessing department?
That's a separate department upstairs, so if people have any questions or issues about the taxes that are being levied on them, they can go up and ask the assessing department about the actual value that's been assessed to them.
It's a great question, though, because people will come call us all the time and say, my taxes I've been sent the wrong tax bill, or my taxes are wrong. And we really don't handle that. That goes upstairs. And there are a number of things that can happen if your taxes are wrong. If your house is overvalued, you can go before the board of review. Sometimes it can be done informally, where it's just the assessor and the resident that sits down and explains the discrepancy, and the resident makes their case, and the assessor can say, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'm within my responsibilities to correct your taxes right now. Other times it has to go before a citizen board of review and then get changed. And of course, other times there's nothing we can do. It just happens to be what the current tax rates are. But the tax rule is actually generated by the assessor's office. It's signed off for by our supervisor, Ron Styka, and then at that point it comes down to the treasurer's office, and Miriam's staff and my staff will then process those checks, deposit them, and make sure they're managed with safety and security.
I think just a little bit of township government, just people don't know what each of the departments do, so I think that was really great to kind of put that out there first and how you work together. So speaking of election season, millages, taxes, on the August 6th ballot, Meridian Township is asking voters to vote yes or no on a street improvement bond proposal and the Ready Ride millage renewal. Can you briefly explain what both of these mean and kind of how much and what is the township asking voters?
I can start with that. Both of those millage renewals came out of our Citizens Transportation Commission, who recommended the renewal of the quarter-mill Ready Ride renewal. Ready Ride is a paratransit or on-demand transit that will take any resident anywhere in the township, Monday to Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And then from 8 to 6 on Saturday. So it helps for our residents who don't live near a main bus line. They can take Ready Ride, take it to the mall, take it to Meyer, take it to their doctor's appointment, or take it up to Grand River, catch bus 1, and go anywhere in the township, anywhere in the Greater Lansing area with that Ready Ride. Now the road millage also came out of the Transportation Commission. We've been studying roads and read the consultants that we've hired report, who basically told us that our roads are in bad shape. Our average road rating, according to a system called PACER, which is a pavement assessment tool, our roads are rated 4.5 on a scale of 1 to 10, and they're falling every year. So the Transportation Commission recommended to the board, and the board approved a 1.95 millage bond millage that will allow us to spend $3.5 million a year on roads for 10 years. So it'll give us $35 million a year. Our objective then would be, and the goal we're going to meet, is to raise that average rating from 4.5 to 8. That's the second millage.
Okay, anything you want to add about maybe how much people would see if these get passed, or how much it would generate?
For a typical Meridian Township household, average household would pay about $29 a month in additional taxes for the two of them combined. About $27 of that would be for the road millage and about $2 for the Ready Ride millage. So less than $30 a month for these two important transportation services.
Can we explain the difference between a millage and a bond?
Sure.
The millage would be something that would be collected and then used right toward the fund. A bond is going to be a little bit different. We would actually go out and ask for funds for a bond proceeds. Mm-hmm. So we would get the money right away on that piece of it, and then we would actually we would put the millage in there to offset the cost of the bond payments for the future payments. So the millage would be, you would get the millage and you'd collect it through the taxes, just like all of our other things. Mm-hmm. But on this bond proposal, what we're proposing is we would get the money up front, and then the millage is there to pay for the proceeds of that.
Okay, I think to clarify that for people, they see the word proposal, millage, bond, and they need to kind of make a differentiation of what they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and both will have we meet the same objective, which is to provide the road improvements we need. The township board was unable to, was kind of forced into going to the route of the bond, because as a township, we can only assess 10 mills. Mm-hmm. And we're essentially at 9 mills already with other Meridian services we provide, and we needed 1.95 to make this work. So short of becoming a city, the only way to fund the roads as we needed to were to put this as a bond rather than as a millage.
So the cap of 10, is that a state, county, or how is that determined?
It's a state law that says township shall not exceed 10 mills in taxation.
Okay. The reason I wanted to speak with you, over the years there's kind of been possibly misinformation, discussion on social media among residents and in the news that Meridian Township is one of the highest municipalities in terms of millage rates and or the amount of millages. What is your response to that? Is that factual? What are the numbers?
It's actually not factual. We are a relative bargain, certainly locally. Our taxes in Meridian Township are about 2/3 what you would pay if you were just to the west of us in East Lansing. Now, we're a little bit higher than, we'll say, Bath Township to the north or Williams Township to the west, but we also provide a much broader range of services for our residents than those municipalities do. But East Lansing, which is somewhat comparable, you're paying about 1/3 less taxes than you would be if you were living next door. So we're not the most expensive and far from it.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I agree with that. A lot of times people misconceive what they're seeing on their taxes, that all of that comes to Meridian Township, and it doesn't. I mean, just the pieces that are going to stay here. You'll see that the Treasurer's Department collects taxes for other areas like cattle and CATA, but those funds go to those different entities, and we don't keep those here in the township.
So that's a great segue. Let's talk about what people see on their tax bills.
Yes.
Like, can you explain the different pieces of the pie? I know we have a graph.
We do have a graph that we'll see as well. Well, let's take a scenario that I have in front of me here. For a house valued at about average $200,000, their taxable value is about half that. Okay, and a house of about half that would pay about $4,500 a year in taxes. Okay, so of that $4,500, if they're in the Okemos School District, they'd pay $1,300 of that to Okemos schools. Okay, 30%. Another 20% to the LCC millage. Then the county has various taxes that voters have approved, another 22% to the county. And then, as Mary mentioned, we also have extensive public transportation funding. That's another 6%, and the library is another 4%. Finally, we get to the township operations, which is police, fire, public safety, our public works, and that is actually 18%. And of that 18%, 2/3 and more go towards public safety, which is police and fire. Mm-hmm. So my office will collect in 2019 around $110 million in gross revenue. The township will only keep around 25 million of that. All the rest of it goes out to these various schools, libraries, public transportation, Ingham County. Even the airport authority has a millage that our taxpayers fund.
So, and it depends on where you live in the township too. There's different school districts, so there's different rates and millages that the schools have done. Can you talk about the differences there?
Well, essentially your school tax is fixed by state law, but schools do have different sinking funds for building improvements. And actually Hazlet Schools has a little bit more than Okemos, but only because they're smaller and they need a little bit more of that per taxpayer funding for it, but they're roughly the same. So your school taxes are pretty much fixed by Proposal A back in 1995.
Okay. And let's talk about the township millages. What are the current millages? And there's a couple that are up for, there's expirations coming up.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those. I don't know if we want to go one, let's start with police and fire.
Okay.
The police and fire, there's a fire protection and a police protection millage that will be up on 12, mine says 12/20 of 19. So what will happen on those, the police and fire protection, is they will show up on the winter taxes on 2019. So you can pay anywhere between December and February 14th on those. So the taxes, that millage will expire at the end of this year. And then we had talked about the CAT already ride. That one already has expired, but that will be on the up for vote in the next election.
So that is currently expired. So if approved, they will see it on their winter bill? Or is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Anything you wanted to say to that? You looked like you wanted to chime in a little bit.
No, nothing on that one.
Okay, let's go down. So police and fire, those are set to expire in 2019. Do you think the township's going to ask for renewal or anything with those?
That'll be up to the township board. By the way, those are both 0.6 of a mil.
Okay.
Most likely they are. Our police and fire, most likely the board will ask for renewal on those in 2020. Police and fire are our most valuable services. It's the #1 service that our residents value and count on is our police and fire protection. So we would be foolish and crazy not to continue to maintain our
Public safety is important to most
our
residents.
excellent public safety departments. Yep.
Okay, and then so going down in 2017, the police and fire protection millage, that was a little different than what people were already paying on. Can we just kind of recap what happened in 2017?
Sure. That was the 27 millage was primarily focused on helping us to retire our pension liability. Like a lot of municipalities, Meridian Township had only funded about 57% of its police and fire liability. We wanted to do something about that. That bill wasn't shrinking, it was only going to get larger. So we put a proposal for $1.5 million before the voters in 2017 that will allow us to put several $1 million a year more into our police and fire millage, so that in 10 years, in 2027, we'll be 100% funded. Now, in addition, that millage provided for 2 more police officers on the street and 2 more firemen, and capital improvements, so that we can, our ladder truck, very important with accidents, or a freeway accident for sure, that ladder truck costs $500,000. And our plan is to have that purchased in 2020. So we'll be able to make those important capital improvements as well with that money. So the main 2/3 of it went towards retiring the pension liability, but we also increased our public safety officers on the street and are making the investments in our capital improvements. That was 1.4 mils. So total millage that our residents are paying specifically for police and fire amount to about 2.6 mils.
Okay, and the one that you just mentioned, that goes until 2026, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then I asked Miriam, I have the same chart in front of me that you both do, and I was asking Miriam about the one that's listed as debt from 2012, and she brought up that was from the Central Fire Station. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so what that was a bond to build the Central Fire Station, and this is to pay back that bond proceeds, principal and interest, just like anybody, like a mortgage, basically. So that's what that millage is for, is to pay that debt to build the central fire station.
Okay, great. And let's move on to local roads. So the street improvement bond is before voters in August. And I believe at the board level, they voted to not continue this one if the bond is approved.
Correct.
Can you add to that?
Yeah, there's a $250,000 road improvement millage right now that gives us about $300,000 per year allows us to then match what the county funding. In fact, the county requires us to provide a township match. So that gives us, in sum, I think last year was almost $600,000 that we had for local roads. That $250,000 that's voters approved will not be assessed by the township board. Even though the voters approved it, we have told the voters if you approve the 1.95 bonding millage, will not assess the $250,000 that's currently being assessed. So the net increase for taxpayers is only 1.7 mils, not 1.95, because we're going to roll back to 0.25.
Okay, so that would have gone until 2023, depending if this bond doesn't get approved. What happens to
Then we'll continue to assess
continue
the
this one until 2023?
Correct.
And look at possibly other options of funding.
That's right.
Streets
That's right.
and roads. Okay.
And so with the approximately $600,000 we had last year from the $250,000, the county match, the township board took some general funds from the budget and added another $500,000 to our road improvement budget. So that gave us about $1.1 million. We've done that the past 3 years because roads are in bad shape in Meridian Township. And we hear it from our voters, from our residents all the time. Fix our roads, they're in terrible shape. We have 155 miles of local roads in the township. Many of those roads were built when the development was first built. I had a house up on Everett Farms, Everett Woods area, built at 92. And part of paying for my lot, I paid for the developer to put a wide road in, the sewer, the gutter, the curb, the sidewalk. All that was part of the cost of the lot. A lot of our township roads, local roads, were built by the developers, by residents who built homes and paid for that lot or paid for the property that included that cost. And a lot of those roads are now 25, 30, 40 years old. And we really don't have a funding mechanism in place at the state level or actually at the local level to preserve those roads. And so they're starting to fail. And many of them already have failed. So this is a way for us to maintain, replace, and improve these roads that were built initially when the developments were done, but there's otherwise no funding there to maintain the roads.
Before we move on, just to clarify, that people know what qualifies as a local road or a local street. What is the difference? Because the state maintains some, the county maintains some others, and I know we've said this to our viewers before, but just to clarify.
To be clear, we have two main state trunk lines in the road, Grand River Avenue, which goes east and west, and then Business Loop 69, Saginaw Highway, which goes up to I-69. Those are the two state trunk lines. We have another 30 miles of county roads, Okemos Road, Hazlitt Road, Lake Lansing Road, even Central Park Road, Drive, Dobie Road. Those are all your more major thoroughfares are maintained by the county, but not all of them. Vanetta Road, for example, is not a county road, even though you might think it should be. So, and then our neighborhood streets are virtually all the rest. The less traveled roads, and all of our neighborhood roads.
I just want to make sure we clarify, because someone may think, okay, I'm gonna vote yes on this bond, but I want Okemos Road done, which is not a part of this really.
No.
Because that's maintained by the county and the funds.
And Okemos Roads needs to be redone, and it will be redone. The problem with Okemos Road right now is we've got 3 different projects going on there. The new drain, many of us remember the big flood from 2018. The drain is 75 years old. The other thing going on with Okemos Road is the Camelback Bridge is going to be replaced in 2 years. And the third is the new downtown village of Okemos development, which is going to impact that road as well. Rather than tearing up Okemos Road 3 times, we decided to tear it up 1 time. And that will likely be in 2 years. So we're going to live with a bumpy Okemos Road until then.
Okay, so moving on from roads, let's go to the land preservation. Let's talk about that millage, and that looks like it's going to expire in 2019 as well. So what is the plan for that? Does anyone know? I know that. Did I say the wrong line?
Nope, you're right.
Okay.
Well, land preservation was an innovative idea 10 years ago that was put forward to the voters, which was to buy up some of our beautiful, natural, undeveloped lands and keep them in the public trust so they never get developed. And the goal at the time was to purchase around 600 acres. Well, it's been so successful, and our Parks Department's been so good at finding great values and getting donations, we now have well over 1,000 acres.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And we have a healthy reserve fund to maintain those lands that are out there now. So land preservation has been very successful. There has been some talk at the board level of reducing that so that we reduce the overall tax burden on the voters, still maintain all the public lands that we have now. The sense I'm getting from talking to our park staff is that we've purchased the lands we really wanted to preserve. Other lands that may still be out there that can be purchased are so wet or so undevelopable that there's really no need for us to develop, and they're going to stay natural anyway. So, but that's a board decision whether or not what we're going to do with the land preservation. But we know it's a really important program. It's been very successful, and there's lots of money that's been set aside to preserve those natural preserves like that. When you say preserve, I mean going in and removing invasive species, okay, and making sure that they're safe. There's no hazards there.
Not truly developed, because you don't want to develop
Not
something.
gonna develop.
Okay.
Right.
Anything you want to add to the land preservation?
No, I think that covers
Okay.
what it's for.
Okay, and so if that expires in December 2019, when do you think the board may decide what to do with that? Is that going to be something in 2020, or?
It would need to be something the board decided if we were going to put it up for a renewal or a reduced renewal that would be just maintenance. That would be something that the board would decide sometime in 2020.
Okay. And then I think, let's go to the community services. So that was approved in 2012. What does community services cover?
The big part of community service is we have a human service specialist on staff here, and this millage supports that staff member, and her name is Darla. She works with our residents if they need assistance with anything, if they need assistance trying to find money to pay their rent, money to pay their utility bills. She worked with other organizations, not just this fund. Also, she works with a lot of other organizations trying to get people the help they need, bus passes and groceries, things that,
Emergency type
yeah,
services.
emergency situations, and that's what a majority of that fund takes care of.
I believe in 2012, I also saw the Meridian Senior Center was a part of this millage. Is there anything else that may fall under community services at this time that you know of?
No, I think Miriam has explained it. It's a relatively small millage, a quarter of a mill, but it provides us with a really important safety net for a lot of our residents. And Darla does an excellent job, and we make sure that people, keep lights from being shut off, or the heat or being shut off in the winter, and roofs over people's heads. So it's a very important program.
Okay, let's talk about the pathways millage.
Okay.
There's a lot of pathways in Meridian Township, just as kind of like the parks and the land preserves. Let's talk about pathways.
That's an important one to maintain. That is a 0.33 mils, a third of a mil, and that we have an extensive pathway system throughout the township. The pathway millage allows us to develop new pathways as they're available, but also to maintain the existing ones. I mean, the pathways program is almost 30 years old now in the township.
Oh my goodness, okay.
So after 30 years, the pathways need to be maintained and in some cases repaved, bridges replaced. All kinds of things are involved with pathways. But we have a very active township. People love to ride and skate and walk in the warmer months, even the colder months, and so maintaining those pathways is important. Now in the winter, when we get snow, the millage allows us to go out and plow,
maintain and
plow and sweep those pathways so that people use them to get to and from school or work, or just for even afternoon walk. It's not 2 foot of snow that they're trying to trudge through.
And I believe the new Okemos Boardwalk project, is that partially from the pathway millage?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly that's from the county pathway millage, and that on Okemos Road there. Most of that money is coming from the county pathways millage. So.
Okay. So pathways to the land preserves and to the parks. And then I know they take that money to connect the gaps, try to make it more walkable and bikeable throughout the township.
The other thing that the county millage is, in terms of pathways, that going to make happen is Lake Lansing to MSU
Correct.
bike path,
Big
which we've
project.
wanted to have for many, many years in this township. And the first 2 of the 3 phases has now been funded. Most of that funding has come from either our local pathway millage or the county pathway millage. So we're very excited about that.
Some big projects through the pathway
Yeah.
millage. And then I think the last one that we're looking at is Parks and Recreation. So that was approved in 2014. Talk about that millage.
That's a really important millage again for our residents because our residents value our parks so much. And we have an outstanding park system, over 20 parks in the township, plus 10 more land preservations. And what that money is going for right now, this year, it's helping to fund the new farmers market. Last year and the year before, it helped, it created the Towner Road sports complex up there on Towner Road, where we've got 4 fields and outstanding recreational facilities up there on that north end of the township, which we've never had before. For parents with children in Hazlet schools, as my kids were often driving down into Okemos because that's where all the sports fields were. Well, now we have 4 outstanding fields up here on the north end of the township. It's also helping to redevelop Central Park. Central Park is a really important park in our township, and it's beautiful. It's very natural, if you will. It's so natural that in many places it's overgrown to the point where it needs to be opened up so that people can get back and forth from Okemos Road back over to Marsh Road.
I believe there's discussion about connecting the 2, there's technically 2 central parks, if you will, connecting the 2. Is that a part of the project, I think?
It is, Central Park South. And speaking of that, in the Nancy Moore Park, that'd be the 3rd park that would be connected to it. They've just opened a small dog park with that park millage. And a large dog park is on the drawing boards, that should be open in a year. So our parks money goes a long ways in this township, and it provides a great service. A big part of our quality of life here is our wonderful park systems.
Anything that you think you're getting asked a lot by residents? Any other questions you kind of want to answer right in the open about tax bills, millages, anything like that?
That's it. Put me on the spot here.
That's okay. Any frequently asked questions that your offices get?
Probably the most important question or frequent question we get about the roads is, well, isn't the state going to fix this with the governor's 45-cent a gallon gas tax? And it would be great, if that was going to get passed, which it's not going to. So it appears that will take some revisions because she doesn't quite have the votes to get that passed. But the more important point is that even if it got passed in its present form, it wouldn't touch local roads. So our roads in the state, top to bottom, are in pretty bad shape, and that proposal would fund a lot of our state roads, our M routes throughout the state, like M43 Grand River going through the township, because they're in bad shape throughout the state. But they wouldn't get to our local roads. And again, there's a whole question of whether that will even get funded. The legislature seems focused on doing something with roads, but nothing so far. So rather than waiting around for the state to fund local road development, which may take decades, if ever at all, the township board put this on the ballot in August, thinking our residents have waited long enough for their roads to be fixed here in the township. And the other question I get on this is, how about staff? Are you going to hire a road department? Are you going to have your own road crew? And the answer is no. All of our road work is done actually through the Ingham County Road Department, and we'll continue to use them. We will have a tighter arrangement with the contractors because we're going to have 10 years of funding for $3.5 million a year. We can now hopefully set up some long-term agreements with these road builders so that they know they're coming back every year for 10 years to fix these roads. So we hope to get higher productivity, higher yield on those road investments because they know they're going to have 10 years of investment here in Meridian Township. So they can give us better rates and better roads for that price. Other issue that comes up a lot about roads is Hazlet Road. A lot of our residents up in Hazlet are kind of miffed about the way Hazlet Road was fixed last year. And they say, this is going to be like Hazlet Road. I'm not going to vote for this millage because last year there was a repaving on Hazlet Road, but due to a couple of unforeseen circumstances, the repaving didn't get done until around Halloween. And it was done in a way that the contractor didn't do it to the standards that they were paid for. So they're back this year fixing Hazlet Road at the contractor's expense. So our roads do come with warranties. We hold those road builders to those warranties, and those people that think we got ripped off by that contractor on Hazlet Road are just not correct. We hold those road builders accountable, and we will with these 155 miles we're going to be fixing over the next 10 years. If the road millage gets passed, we're going to make sure the work that is specified is done, and if it's not done properly, we'll bring them back and fix it at their expense, not the taxpayers' expense.
Anything you want to add about the millage rates or anything maybe you see that residents
Yeah.
ask on social media or even at township
I think
meetings?
one of the questions that always comes up is, how do I know that my money for any of these millages is going toward that item? And part of the requirements of these different millages have its own fund inside our budget. So we have to put those into, I use the word bucket, they go into these special funds and special buckets that's what it's designated for. So if we say that we're collecting this money for roads, it has to go for roads. We can't use it for other general funds to fix the roof on this place or something like that. These millages are specific for what they're being voted on, and we're required to make sure that those funds get, dispersed in that manner.
And we're looking at the chart that we're referring to, that goes to the state of Michigan, correct? That gets
Correct.
filed? Okay.
So when the budget gets approved, this tax rate request gets filed with the state of Michigan, so that these are on file with the state of what we're actually going to collect.
And then where it goes.
Right.
Basically. Anything else that maybe you want to, we talked about the other entities briefly about where the money goes and that people know that it doesn't all come to the township. Anything you want to say about the county millages or even cattle or CATA or any of those kind of entities?
Well, our
And the schools?
voters in Meridian Township have been very generous in their millages in the past. We've supported public transportation. We've supported our libraries. They supported the county path millage in the past. Recently, they supported the new county jail complex. So our voters believe in the general good and have supported them. But as we pointed out earlier, of every dollar that is paid in taxes, only about 20 cents of that stays here in the township. So we make the best use of those 20 cents as we can. We put every dollar to use. If you come into town hall, you'll see a very busy business operation. People here work. We do our job. It's our job to serve the public and make sure that tax dollars we collect are spent as efficiently and wisely.
How can people see this information? Is the tax information, the chart that we're going to show, is that online? Or if they have questions, can they contact each of you or even
They certainly
direct them
can.
to the assessing department, whatever you need to do?
They can call the treasurer's office at 853-4144 is my number, and we can answer questions. There is the presentation on our current state of our roads that was on the township webpage as well, made by Assistant Director Perry. And it's important to point that we're not, as township employees, advocating for a yes or no. We're here to explain why it's on the ballot. It's really the voters' decision whether or not they believe this is the right thing to do. We're here today just to explain what our current millage rates and what this money would go to if it were approved by the voters.
As well as any other millages that may be coming up for renewal or know when they expire and what it means.
Yes.
Okay.
And all of these charts that we're talking about are online in our budget. So if you go into our website and under the finance, accounting and finance, there's the budget, and you can see these millage rates that are there, and also the budget to represent what we've budgeted to spend on the money that's being collected.
Okay.
And while we're talking about these millages,
Yes,
I
of
want to take a
course.
chance to thank our voters and our residents. They've been extremely supportive of the public good here in Meridian Township and in Ingham County. And because of that, we have a great community that we should all be proud of. But it's only due to the fact that our residents have supported these proposals we put before them to provide great libraries and great schools and transportation and so forth. And we'll continue to do great things here.
Okay, well, thank you, Miriam. Thank you,
Thank you.
Phil, for coming on and explaining the numbers and kind of answering those questions that people have.
Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you. And thank you for watching.